Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're going to be talking about some must-own players here. I've got 10 of them up on the board, one for each round, 1 through 10 here. We're going to be going in descending order. So this is a little bit of a preview, a sneak peek to some of the information in our draft guide collection for the 2021 season. I've got 60 total names on there that are must-own players from rounds 1 all the way to 20 in 12-team leagues. So in addition to the players you see in today's episode, 50 more names are included on that big board list. So be sure to check that out. It's one of the best values out there in the fantasy football market for draft guides this season, and it's crammed with information, so it'd be awesome if you check that out. But today, like I said, one name in rounds 1 through 10 here of my favorite must-own players for this season. So without further ado, if you're new around here, go down, click that subscribe button, and give this video a like before we get started. And then let's hit that intro and get right into my players. One more quick detail before we get started here. As I mentioned, the draft guide in the intro today, you can see that up on your screen, but the link to go check that out and to visit our website here is in the description of today's and every single video here. Additionally, I want to be the most interactive fantasy football community out there for you guys to take advantage of me as a resource, connect with me, have me help answer your questions. You can join the free SFS community Discord by jumping down. The link to that, or the invite I should say, is in the description of this video as well. So you can get in there, ask me questions, pick my brain while I've got free time. And then every week I do a couple subscriber mock drafts, and you can have the advantage or opportunity to jump in and take advantage of those as well. So with that being said, we're starting off, as I said, we're going in descending order. So I'm starting with round 10 here. Corey Davis is my first name up on the board. There's not too many names I love that much in the 10th round right now. We do see names like Darnell Mooney kind of creeping closer towards this ADP, which if that eventually becomes a strongly rooted thing, I would say he is a player I would rather have over Corey Davis. But I still really like the opportunity we have here. This is a player who we're getting in, again, the 10th round of 12-team formats that could potentially be the top wide receiver on his team. The Jets have produced a quality wide receiver in the past who was the number one option on their roster, that being Jamison Crowder the last 2 years. This offense has been a joke. It has been terrible, but he was still able to put up good enough numbers to, at times, be a high-end wide receiver 2 play. So Davis might not be your high-end wide receiver 2 on a week-to-week basis, or a wide receiver 1 even, but he was very good with the Titans last year, and he was a very productive scorer. And I think that's something that we shouldn't take very lightly, because that was a very low passing volume offense, and the Jets, I think, will have to throw the ball more than even the Titans did last season, despite their defensive struggles. So we know Davis can get open. He's got some solid PFF gradings. He's a good player, a former first-round pick. I think they can bring him in here, and if he's not the top dog, he will at very least be the second option in this offense. So I think there's a lot of nice upside to take advantage of here. Ryan Tannehill, my 9th round player here. In one quarterback leagues, the quarterback differential between points per game scored of a high-end QB1 and a middle tier to low-end QB1, there's a noticeable difference, but as compared to other positions out there, it's lesser of an issue or lesser of a variety than, say, running back. Why not wait till the 9th round to take your quarterback 1? Ryan Tannehill can fulfill that for you. This is a player who has very, very good upside. People take for granted he can tuck the ball and run. He was a wide receiver in college, and he's transitioned very nicely into the league. He had kind of a late breakout, and it's been with the Titans that he's found the most success as compared to his time with the Dolphins. But man, he's got 2 number 1 wide receivers in the lineup every week in A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. He's got a really, really good run game, Derrick Henry, to keep things balanced. And he, like I said, can tuck the ball and run. Had 7 rushing touchdowns, I believe, if that is correct off the top of my head last year. So go take advantage of Ryan Tannehill. This is a player who can come out here, again, like I said, in 1 QB leagues, fulfill that starting lineup or that starting role in your lineups. I was playing him in a ton of leagues last year because he was one of the best value plays out there and someone you absolutely want to take advantage of. Trey Sermon here, another running back, or I should say the first running back up on the board here, but one in particular who has upside that is basically uncharted territory for other players at this spot on the board. Pretty much all other starting backs or backs that have the potential to be starters for their teams have already went off the board here. The only one left is Michael Carter of the Jets, who I would say has lesser upside than Sermon, so that's why Sermon gets this spot on today's video over a Michael Carter. But still, Trey Sermon's going to have a very good, productive offense to be a part of. He's got a skill set that I think will play much to his advantage in his usage in this offense, and the fact that he can be used really as a 3-down back. I wouldn't classify him as an elite 3rd-down receiving back, but he can still get the job done in that area of the field, and nonetheless, his ability to produce on the goal line and be used on 1st and 2nd down, I still think is enough that down the stretch of the year, he has league-winning upside for being such a late-round draft pick for the potential production he could have for an output. Robby Anderson here. This is my next wide receiver up. Anderson's a player who I've talked about a lot this offseason. I think he will continue to be the Jets' most targeted player. I love some of the things I'm seeing in the preseason from Shi Smith and Terrace Marshall. I think they might have a sprinkled-in role as well. This offense wants to be a high-flying attack, but at the end of the day, I think Robby Anderson having a connection with Sam Darnold, his former quarterback when they were together on the Jets, is going to be too much even for a player as talented as DJ Moore to overcome. Maybe Moore is the better talent. Maybe he's the player who can be more efficient, but Robby Anderson's pretty dang efficient himself. And while none of these players, maybe Terrace Marshall, honestly, long-term has the best upside to be used in the red zone, this year I don't think we're going to see any tremendous touchdown production from any of these receivers. So at the end of the day, Robby Anderson's target share in this offense is going to come down to being that tiebreaker, the most meaningful part of this offensive production at this position. So I think when you're talking about a player who can put up high-end wide receiver 2 numbers in the 7th round, it's a pretty good bargain, and I think that he can be an incredibly valuable lineup piece. Brandon Aiyuk here in the 6th round. He's an early 6th round pick, but still a player I think has incredible breakout potential. You'll see him later on this week in another episode. The 49ers have a cake schedule, and Brandon Aiyuk has been rumored to be the most liked wide receiver target amongst the 4 quarterbacks in 49ers training camp. He's too good to pass on here. He's got the ability to be used as a 3-level of the defense route runner, meaning that he can run short, intermediate, and deep passing routes. He can be used in the wide receiver run game. We see him do work really close to the line of scrimmage after the catch and be very productive there. I just think that he's got too much going for him, and again, easy secondary matchups are going to help him thrive and have more big weeks like we saw him end off last season with. So as long as he stays healthy, as long as the quarterback play is average at worst, he'll be just fine, but it should be better than that. Jimmy Garoppolo is no scrub, as much as some people might want to tell you that. And hopefully, if Trey Lance hits the field, he will be refined and developed long enough to fulfill the role that we need him to play to maintain fantasy success for his pass catchers. But I'm very high on Aiyuk this season. I think he's got the potential to be a fringe wide receiver 1 this year. Tyler Lockett in the 5th round, another bargain wide receiver with incredible upside. You're going to see another name here after him at the wide receiver position. There's so much value in must-own level players in the back half of the draft board. We have to be taking advantage of those running backs early, because really the wide receiver position is the crop you want to be taking advantage of here in the rounds 4 and 5 plus, because the running backs dry up pretty quick while the receivers are such a deep spot that you can get a player like Tyler Lockett, who I think has legitimate wide receiver 1 capabilities this season, at this spot on the board. Him and Russell Wilson have a chemistry like very few other wide receiver quarterback combos in the league. They just get the job done. It seems like the ball placement of Russell Wilson, the awareness of Tyler Lockett to make these incredible toe drag catches in the back corner of the end zone, they just make the spectacular and the wild plays look easy. And maybe Tyler Lockett isn't necessarily a top 10 wide receiver in terms of raw talent. He can put up those numbers for us in fantasy because of how high his ceiling is in this offense and how high it is because of the quarterback he's tied to. So another thing that's important here, Russell Wilson doesn't miss games, so you're going to be getting that chemistry and that connection as often as Tyler Lockett is on the field and healthy. So the upside, it goes punch for punch with nearly every other receiver in fantasy. no reason to pass on him there in the 5th round unless you're really, really dire for another position of need. CeeDee Lamb's my 4th round must-own player here. Again, talk about a receiver who's got incredible upside. The Dallas Cowboys offense, it's high-flying, it's pass-heavy. They're trying to push the ball down the field. They do have a very strong run game or potential to have that, but they're out there so often trying to keep up in games, and their defense, although it will be better this season, I expect, excuse me, probably won't be a top-end unit. This is a team that you're looking at as having probably a bunch of points scored against them. They're probably going to be at least a bottom 20 defense in the league this year, meaning that, I shouldn't say bottom 20, they'll probably be a bottom 10 or 15 unit this year. I meant they would at best finish as the 20th best defensive unit. They're going to need to compensate for that somehow, and that's going to come in form of the passing game. Dak Prescott airing it out, giving his receivers volume. CeeDee Lamb was only -5 in the target department to Amari Cooper when Dak Prescott went down with injury. And then after that, when the other quarterbacks came into play, it became far more lopsided. So heading into year 2 as a player who flashed so much as a rookie, I think Lamb is in for a huge season. And the value here in the 4th round, when you stack him up against the other wide receivers going at this draft position, is incredibly good. And I think his upside is as good, if not better, than all the other names on the table. In the 3rd round now, why not head out, get yourself some positional advantage here with Darren Waller, my tight end 2 for this fantasy season, above a George Kittle even. I think he has such good potential and lack of established competition for target share and usage in this offense that he's just going to dominate the passing game in Las Vegas. And he's already clearly Derek Carr's number 1 target here. So maybe Bryan Edwards, maybe Henry Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow carve out roles for themselves, eat into his production little by little, but at the end of the day, the one guy who does have an established role here is Darren Waller. He's the one guy I would not be worried about as far as pass catchers go for this Raiders offense. And I just think he'll be so productive in both the volume phase of things and the touchdown production scoring range. You talk about his yardage output as well. It all comes together for Waller here. There's no reason to pass on him. And again, early to mid 3rd round pick, you're looking at some great value here and putting yourself ahead at a position where few others will be able to see this level of success at, even if they draft the top 5 or 6 tight end, because there's still a significant drop from Waller to Andrews to Hockenson to Pitts. It just doesn't get much better than this. Travis Kelce's in his own tier. I would argue Darren Waller is the next tier, and then everyone else is below that. It's a very, very thin position group, so you want to be getting these names early and often. Antonio Gibson in the 2nd round is a player we have got to start picking earlier. Kyle Allen, his quarterback, or one of his quarterbacks in Washington, basically just said they are trying in camp right now to force feed Antonio Gibson into the Christian McCaffrey role that was played in Carolina. Obviously, Kyle Allen played with CMC in Carolina, and Ron Rivera, the head coach, was overseeing Christian McCaffrey and in charge of that football team while he was having these dominant seasons. So the fact that Antonio Gibson could see that level of usage and production this year is crazy scary in a good way. And if you're owning him in a fantasy league, the upside here is relatively, it's sort of uncapped, because if he gets the touchdown volume McCaffrey was seeing, the pass catching production and volume that McCaffrey was seeing, he could be a 2,000 yard from scrimmage threat. And maybe he doesn't quite get there, but when you look at his raw yardage output from last year, it really wasn't all that great. He wasn't starting to be used effectively or to his highest end potential until the middle to late end of the year. And then he got turf toe and he got hurt, and we didn't see him finish off the season, but he still finished as the RB13. So one of my favorite names on this list by far, at the most important position in fantasy football. You cannot capitalize on Antonio Gibson enough this season, in my opinion, especially in those in those full PPR leagues. But I would argue he's still a dang good standard league play as well. And then finally here, Ezekiel Elliott. This is a player who is a do-it-all back. He has a complete skill set, and for a player whose ADP is 8 right now, so in a 12-team league, he's still going in the back third of the first round. There is just, why are we taking Nick Chubb in front of Ezekiel Elliott, even if we've got our concerns about Mike McCarthy's play calling on that offense, even if we're a little bit worried about Dak Prescott's shoulder health and that issue. I mean, that is something that could impact a CeeDee Lamb who's on this list as well. But I still think that Zeke, in terms of his volume as a pure rusher, the ability he showed us as a pass catcher last season, his goal line volume and usage right there, there's too much to like here. I mean, there's a lot of running backs that are going to go off the board early in the first round, but Zeke really isn't that much farther behind the top-end guys than some of us might like to think. So don't overlook Ezekiel Elliott, I would say, and for a while, I was mocking him at the 1-5. You can get him all the way back at the 8 or 9 pick now because Saquon Barkley is returning back to the field. He's expected to be healthy and ready to go, or at least it sounds like things are trending that way. So that's bumped pretty much everyone after him's ADP down a little bit. That makes an incredible value here for Ezekiel Elliott, and you could potentially get yourself a top 5 or 6 back, like I said, in the bottom third of 12-team leagues in that first round. Alrighty, there you guys go. Those were 10 players, one each in rounds 1 through 10 of 2021 fantasy football draft boards. Go out and get these players. This was just a sneak peek, a preview to a huge chunk of the information I've got in my draft kit for this season. Again, there's 50 additional names on top of the 10 I covered here today, and I only covered one player in each round. So you can go take advantage of that. Check out the players I've got listed for each round in detail. You can click on their names, check out their draft guide profiles, and get individual, in-depth analysis and content here for this coming fantasy season. So thank you all so much for watching. If you've got questions, comments, concerns, drop those down in the comment section below. I'll be happy to get back to you and answer you as quickly as possible. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.